The brochure called it a paleo safari. 14 days, 4 continents of preserved Cretaceous habitat, all of it viewed from behind 9 inches of polycarbonate glass rated to withstand the impact of a mid-sized freight truck. You paid $43,000 for that glass. You believed in it the way people believe in seatbelts and smoke detectors, and the idea that the worst things in the world happen to someone else. You had the window seat. You had the telephoto lens. You had 17 years of wildlife documentaries downloaded somewhere in the back of your brain, and you were ready. The vehicle stopped without warning. No grinding, no warning light. It simply ceased to be a machine and became a box. The guide said nothing. The other passengers said nothing. And then the Cretaceous said nothing too, which was the part nobody warned you about. Because the jungle here is never quiet. Something is always moving, always calling, always alive in the wet and anxious way that living things announce themselves. But not now. Now there was only the cup holder and the water inside it, rippling. You do the thing every human does. You go completely still. It is instinct dressed up as strategy, and it has been killing people for longer than people have existed to be killed. The myth is persistent and comfortable. Don't move, and the predator can't see you. It comes from somewhere reasonable, from frogs and insects, and creatures whose vision is built around detecting motion. You are banking your life on a behavioral model, designed for animals that weigh less than your carry-on luggage. Tyrannosaurus Rex does not have that limitation. His visual acuity is estimated at 13 times that of a modern human. Where you see a smear of green and shadow, he resolves individual leaves, individual branches, the slight tremor in your jaw as you try to hold your breath. Researchers modeling his binocular field calculated a forward-facing overlap of roughly 55 degrees, wider than any modern predatory bird. He doesn't scan, he reads. The jungle in front of him is a document, and you are a sentence he has already finished. Stillness was never the strategy. It was just the last comfortable lie. What you need to understand about the skull is that it is not designed to hold a head. It is designed to transfer force. The Tyrannosaurus cranium is a kinetic system, a cathedral of struts and fenestrae. Those large open windows in the bone that exist not as weakness, but as engineered efficiency, redistributing the load of a bite that researchers estimate exceeded 12,800 pounds of pressure per square inch at the back teeth. For reference, a saltwater crocodile, the animal you already fear beyond reason, generates roughly 3,700. Your femur, the strongest bone in your body, snaps under approximately 1,700 pounds of direct force. He does not need to try. He does not need to commit. The closing of his jaw is a casual mechanical event, the same effort you expend cracking a walnut. Your skeleton is not an obstacle to him. It is texture. The skull itself measures 5 feet in length and is anchored to a neck that functions as a biological piston, driving those serrated teeth downward with the accumulated momentum of a creature that has spent 66 million years of evolutionary time doing exactly this. One bite. That's the math. Before you see him, you will feel something change in your chest. Not fear, exactly. Something more foundational than fear. A pressure, a loosening. The kind of sensation that arrives before conscious thought can name it. And by the time you understand what it has already done its work. Tyrannosaurus is theorized to have communicated and hunted using infrasound, low-frequency acoustic waves that travel through solid matter, through soil and steel, and the walls of a polycarbonate vehicle. At wavelengths, the human ear cannot process as sound. What the ear cannot hear, the body receives instead. Infrasound at sufficient amplitude disrupts vestibular function. It creates disorientation. It has been documented in modern large predators and in certain geological events, and the consistent human report is the same, an inexplicable urge to flee paired with the sudden inability to move. Your muscles receive 2 instructions simultaneously: run and don't. The nervous system cannot reconcile them. This is not a design flaw in you. This is a design feature in him. The paralysis was always the point. He did not evolve a roar to announce himself. He evolved it to stop you before you could make the question of escape relevant. Suppose the first bite misses clean. Suppose the angle is wrong, or the vehicle gives you another half second, or something in the probability of the moment bends just enough in your direction. Suppose you run. Suppose you actually get away. The teeth will have touched you anyway. Tyrannosaurus teeth are not smooth. They are serrated along both edges, like a steak knife engineered by 66 million years of selective pressure, and packed into the serrations, packed into the deep grooves that no tongue ever cleaned and no saliva ever neutralized, is a bacterial colony of extraordinary lethality. This is not conjecture. Komodo dragons, the living animal whose predatory biology most closely echoes what we reconstruct for large theropods, routinely disable prey through septic bite alone. The venom was a later discovery. The bacteria were always there first. The T-Rex bite that doesn't kill you immediately inoculates you. The wound will not close the way wounds are supposed to close. The tissue will begin to fail. The infection moves faster than evacuation, faster than any antibiotic timeline. He doesn't need to finish the job. He built the finish into the opening move. There is a categorical difference between being cut and being crushed, and it matters because your nervous system will experience both, and it will not know which to report first. Slicing predators, big cats, your sharks, operate by severing. The pain is sharp and immediate, and the body understands it quickly. There is a biological grammar to it that your nerve endings have been reading since before you were human. Bone-crushing predation is a different language entirely. When a force of 12,000 pounds meets the architecture of a human body, the failure is not clean. Bone does not snap the way a branch snaps. It shatters in compression, fragmenting inward, driving splinters into muscle and muscle into cavity. The sound is not a crack. Researchers studying large theropod bite mechanics describe a resonant, wet detonation, audible at extraordinary distances in open terrain. The pressure wave through the soft tissue precedes the pain signal by enough milliseconds that the first thing you register is not agony, but a strange, total silence inside yourself, as if the body is taking a moment to catalog the full scope of what has just happened before committing to a response. That moment of silence is the most frightening part. If the bite doesn't end it, the foot will. A Tyrannosaurus foot measures roughly 3 feet in length, not including the dew claw, and the 3 forward-facing digits terminate in talons that paleontologists estimate could exert localized pressure sufficient to puncture sheet steel. The full animal, at conservative estimates, weighs between 15,000 and 17,000 pounds. Distributed across 2 feet during a walking stride, each footfall delivers the equivalent of a loaded cement mixer, dropping from standing height onto whatever occupies the ground beneath it. If he steps on you, the experience is not impact in any sense that the word usually carries. It is compression. It is the systematic failure of every air-bearing structure in your body simultaneously. Your lungs do not collapse so much as they are removed as a concept. Researchers studying large animal trampling events in modern megafauna record near instantaneous loss of consciousness from thoracic compression alone before any other injury registers. This is, medically, the more merciful version of the encounter. The weight of a 15,000-pound animal is one of the few forces on Earth that moves faster than the human nervous system's ability to process suffering. He is not hunting you anymore. He is simply walking. Here is the part that will cost you something. You have been operating this entire time on the assumption that you are being hunted, that there is a chase, that somewhere in the calculus of this encounter, you registered as a worthy adversary, a target selected, a pursuit initiated. It is a more bearable version of the story because a hunt implies significance. A hunt implies that you were seen. The current scientific consensus on Tyrannosaurus Rex feeding behavior leans heavily toward opportunistic. A 15,000-pound animal requires an extraordinary caloric intake to move, and evolution does not reward the expenditure of enormous energy on prey that requires effort. You are not being hunted. You are being collected. You are a calorie-positive object that has stopped moving in a convenient location, and the distinction between a predatory strike and a scavenging event for a creature of this size and this biology is largely administrative. You are not the climax of this story. You are a rest stop. The camera in your hand, the $43,000 seat, the 17 years of documentaries, none of it elevated you in his assessment. You were always just mass, portable, undefended, easy. The hypoxia arrives before the pain finishes. This is the body's final administrative kindness. The brain, starved of oxygen, begins to dissolve the sharp edges of experience, and what remains is not suffering exactly, but something closer to clarity. A cold arriving understanding. You came here to watch. You paid to be adjacent to something that cannot be adjacent to anything. You brought a lens to observe a force that does not perform, that does not acknowledge the concept of an audience, that existed for 165 million years without ever once requiring your attention or your wonder or your validation. You believed, in some deep architectural part of yourself, that the glass was the contract. That spectacle had terms. That curiosity was a protected activity. 65 million years of evolutionary history have been moving toward this correction since the moment your species developed the arrogance to call this a vacation. The ego does not shatter dramatically. It simply becomes irrelevant, the way a footnote becomes irrelevant when the book ends. The last coherent thought most trauma patients report is not fear. It is a strange, enormous embarrassment. The Cretaceous was never a destination. It was always a verdict. We put them in museums because that is where the things that can kill us belong. Behind glass, on pedestals, rendered in plaster and steel armature, posed mid-stride, permanent and defanged, reduced to the grammar of an exhibit. We label them. We build gift shops around them. We let children press their palms against the reconstruction of a femur and feel, briefly, the scale of what once walked here, and then we walk them back to the parking lot, and we go home. This is the correct response to a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Every instinct that drove you to want more, to want proximity, to want footage nobody else had, to want the moment where the glass between you and the Cretaceous felt thin enough to be romantic rather than necessary, every one of those instincts is the same instinct that ends the story you just heard. The fossil record is a filing system for creatures that got too close to something they underestimated. We are in it somewhere. In the compressed layer of stone that marks the moment a 15,000-pound animal corrected a $43,000 mistake. The warning has always been right there. We just keep paying to ignore it.